In this module, we're going to continue to expand the detailing of the project that we've started. We're going to add an awning, construct an interior stairway, insert doors in the storefront glazing, create railing systems up on the mezzanine level, add some model text for signage, and develop some site context. That is the curb and sidewalk that go around our building. So a lot of that is obviously well covered in the module that we're going to do in step-by-step video instruction, but I did want to cover some of the kind of details of these construction methods. So, the actual construction of a stairway, what it means to us as kind of an architect designer instead of just a computer operator. So this is the first graphic on the left here of what the stairway will look like that I ask you to construct in the module. And on the right-hand side here, we have what that might look like in the real world. So there's very typical, similar types of stairway systems that we find all over our commercial structures that have this kind of mezzanine level access of a stairway. And our modeler is really good at making that. And so I want you to be familiar once we start constructing it about some basic terms. Some of them you're obviously already familiar with. I thought this was a good graphic that kind of encapsulated our kind of stairway and some of the nomenclature. So we have the tread, a place where your foot lands, the riser, the vertical rise of the stairway, and that has controls over what dimensions those can be, as well as the tread. The nosing, the concept of the nosing is this extension of the tread past the face of the riser. And then when we look at a full stairway construction, we consider this idea of the specifics of the railing system that protects us from fall. So we have obviously balusters, or sometimes these are rails that are going horizontally. We have a handrail. A handrail extension, typically there is this idea of needing to grip at that first base level for accessibility issues. The baluster, that vertical, like I said, the vertical element, and that's to prevent a fall, and that has a spacing requirement to it. And then this idea of newel post or newel, that's these intermediate, heavier vertical rails that support the guardrail and the top rail of our rail system. In the full construction of this, some other terms come into use. The idea of a landing. Typically, the stairway has a maximum amount of run before it's required to have a landing. A landing is required whenever you're changing directions in the run of a stairway. So landing is an important concept for both discussion and code issues. Now, the International Building Code is basically our governance for dictating the way our stairways are constructed, and that is with respect to the amount of rise and run of the stairway, the kind of railing systems that go on it, the requirement for handrails, clearance overhead when you're passing through maybe a second floor or an opening. So I would invite you to open up the slideshow and click through to this. I have this hyperlinked, and or you could just Google, the IBC code 2015 for stairways. But they have a lot of good, rich information about what the code requirements are. In general, just for us to know, there's a maximum and a minimum that the tread riser can be. In some cases, that's 7 inches of maximum riser and a minimum of 4 inches. And so a comfortable amount of riser is 6 inches to 6.5 inches. Tread, commonly a foot. Nosing, an inch or so. And the railing has also a lot of code requirements to it. The 42-inch height for the guardrail for fall protection, between 34 and 38 inches for the railing. And this idea that nothing can pass through the structure of the stairway that is larger than 4 inches. And the 4-inch diameter is kind of the idea that a child's head could not get through that spacing on any element and get the potential of a body passing through there, or a child playing on it. So the 4-inch sphere is the guide for making sure that the stairways meet code as far as the spacing between the openings, and that goes all the way down to the stairway tread and the riser. If the riser was open, meaning there was nothing here, nothing larger than 4 inches could pass through it. Our modeler has the capability of, just by the way we define it, making a concrete stairway or making an assembled one. And I think that the amount of detail that gets created in just a couple of clicks of our mouse is kind of amazing and really kind of helpful to us as designers. And I want you to be kind of sensitive to the, I guess, the power of the tool and the amount of creative flexibility you have with it. The next thing we're going to construct is an awning system, and we're going to make what I call a bespoke or custom awning. We'll do it from scratch. And that's because this is one of the feature elements you see on a lot of entry conditions of buildings. Many times you might be called in to upgrade or improve the appearance or physical facade of a building. And the entry condition is a place where architects spend a lot of attention, and creating this idea of covered or protected openings and a feature element of the building. So we're going to do it bespoke, as I said, but there's many vendors and manufacturers who are in the business of supporting that idea. You come up with a custom idea, and they have techniques for constructing this. And this is hyperlinked to that site if you're interested in exploring that in more detail. The other reason I want you to think about this idea of constructing a custom awning is because it can be an extension of the building and the facade system. And I think this is really just a wonderful example. So here we have an awning that's intended to create a sense of protection, direction, maybe a connecting link between two buildings. But in this case, it's not for rain protection. It's actually for sun protection. This is probably a warm, arid climate. The important element here was to protect people who might be waiting out for transportation or something from the heat of the sun. And I think it's really nice the way the architect or the designer has carried the motif and concept of the awning down through to a bit of the facade element. And I'll pick up on graphics next.